So as I brought up before, I was, the number 22, which stuck with me, which eventually led me to search for 22 and Jesus and babies and talk after I read in that book that showed page 22. But then in further study of the Gospel of Thomas, it says in Thomas 3, Jesus said, "If those who lead you say unto you, behold, the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds of the heavens will be before you. If they say unto you, it is in the sea, then the fish will be before you. But the kingdom is within you, and it is outside of you. When you know yourselves, then you shall be known, and you shall know that you are the sons of the living Father. But if ye do not know yourselves, then you are in poverty, and you are in poverty." So he goes on to state also that I came and found you in a drunken state, right? Well, maybe the world is in a drunken state. And I mentioned two things: political correctness, and then addiction, and all the information that's put in as propaganda into the metaverse and into your phones is all that you know. So you're not experiencing this world that Jesus describes in the Gospel of Thomas. And I can't prove it's him, but I have a feeling it's him. But in it, that story that I just read, each and every one brings me to think about experiences that I've had. And I know that if I can now bring to you my experiences, then you can bring to me your experiences, then we could learn that we're very much alike. So if you look at the Quran and we look at the Bible and what is taught and what people believe, the actual end goal for the salvation that we're waiting for is Jesus' return. So I asked someone last night, what does the Jesus Christians believe? They believe that the Lord will return. What do Muslims believe? And there are, billion Muslims, but instead of them understanding and saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we're alike, because we believe that Jesus, the Messiah, as he's described in the Quran as the Messiah, he will return and bring peace to the earth. But what if, just hypothetically, just rock with me for a little bit, what if he doesn't physically return, because that might be impossible? What if he resides in heaven as a legend, as is described in Islam, and Christians believe the same? But what if his message and spirit returns to the earth? What if this Gospel of Thomas that's been hidden for 1950 years and now hits me, because for 46 years now, but 42 years at the time, it connected everything that I believe. So he talks about, so when I was in Dominica, instead of studying, I found the stars and the forests and the ocean and the rivers, and I searched all night, every night. I ate off the land, swam into the rivers, out into the ocean, even stepped on a manta ray who lifted me up and catapulted me. But in that time, I had with me two connections to the world: the Mos Def and Talib Kweli album, Black Star, and Untold Stories by Boozy Banton, which I played on my CD player. And what's hit me is that the Ashmead Choate that I described was describing a way, not a religion. The Abdul Majid was describing a way, not a religion. The samurais that I studied were described in that way. And what if we were, instead of finding differences, we were saying, what if we were just building on knowledge, and as truth seekers, we have to filter out what we can deduce, not based off of belief and reason, but what we can prove scientifically and what we can feel. And maybe the way of each man or woman is to be an individual that can feel and prove. Now, he goes on and on to describe what I believe is Judaic beliefs on wisdom, on proverbs, and these are parables for us to think. Now, I can get and have gotten the same knowledge from listening to the Quran and those studies, but then I went and delved into Kabbalah and, through music, like if you listen to Live at Stubbs 2 from Baptist Yahoo, you can feel that energy and that power and that knowledge without even understanding the language. So I'm saying the way is to be open to embrace without judging, and from it you'll be a seeker and you'll get a greater understanding. But when you understand, you'll become one of the 5%, and you'll be troubled. So for me, I was reassured because I was troubled by what I found. On the state of the world, as he described, he found the world drunk, right? But not drunk of alcohol or intoxication. We're now drunk off of phones and devices and screens, and all of it is facades. Each movie you watch is a lie. All these superheroes are lies. So what if, instead of what you could see and what you've been told, and Batman and Venom, what if you studied all the ancestors instead? And this goes back to Hinduism and African ancestor belief, and the Ankh and the ancestors, and we studied all of the greats, MLK, JFK, Muhammad, Jesus, and we brought them to life in us and connected to them. And maybe connecting to these ancestors can give us a greater understanding if we could study and feel what they went through. So I encourage my Muslim brothers and sisters to study the life of two men, ancestors, Abu Dhar. And he was the man who went to Muhammad and he gave him salams and he said peace. He said assalamu alaikum. Do you understand? And he lived, and you look at his life, when they rose up and it was about economics and greed and wealth, he stood against it. Look at the life of Ali. When he lived an ascetic life, he wandered and he suffered and changed the world. What I'm saying to you is that I can now take, and what I've done is take, so if you go back to 2010, I was challenged by Nas and Damian Marley, and I put that in the song Savali, Patience, Patience, and it says, can you read stars? Can you read thoughts? Can you read palms? Who wrote the Quran? Who wrote the Bible? You know what? I sought to understand and conquer all of those gifts. So as an empath and a healer, I learned, and I've been knowing how to read thoughts, so I can feel when I got the diagnosis, I could feel everyone's judgment, and I could feel those with hate, those with enmity. And you know what? I said, this life for me isn't about money and cars and house and good living. It has to be that I have to believe now. I've not talked about believing anymore. But maybe the impact of everyone is bringing up their experiences and their knowledge and their learning, and then learning from others until we could come to a point that maybe we should all believe the same thing. That we are all humans gifted with 5 senses that can achieve the 6th. And maybe we can learn from each other and find commonality. And in this is a great knowledge. But what I challenge you to do is, if you, every time you decide to go text or go on Facebook or social media, instead for 5 minutes you read about an ancestor, or you read from a book of knowledge like the Gospel of Thomas or the Bible or the Quran, or Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, or Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, or The Bird Way by Ackerman, or The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And then, instead of having the small talk and social innuendo, everyone that texts you, you call them and you tell them about what you really read and what you've studied and what knowledge you've come to know. What will happen is you'll realize that, and that's what they'll start thinking that you're not right. Because you know why? Because it is insane to be putting all of this knowledge together to help yourself. As he said, you will find yourself, and then when you find yourself, you'll find the kingdom.